Hello and welcome to the JB&M Sports Fanatic channel. Thank you for joining again as there's actually more interesting news here about former NFL player Anthony Gonzales, who is going to try to introduce a national NIL bill that will hopefully allow college players to be able to profit from their own likeness. Now, going back to just even a little before I get into the article here, just a little bit about Anthony Gonzales. He was with Ohio State for a couple seasons, going way back to around the 2004, 2005, 2006 Ohio State team. So that was around the time that Troy Smith won the Heisman during that time frame, and they ended up going to the national championship to lose to the Florida Gators after Ted Ginn Jr. suffered that injury after running back the opening kick for a touchdown. So if there's one thing I've noticed, running a kickback for a touchdown usually leads to a demise afterwards when it comes to the biggest game. I've seen that also happen with Devin Hester and the Bears. But that being aside from the story, throughout his career at Ohio State, he accumulated 87 receptions for 1,286 yards, averaging 14.8 yards a catch, and three touchdowns during his time with the Buckeyes, and also carrying the ball for 36 yards on three attempts. So that was his time at Ohio State. But then he was drafted in the first round by the Indianapolis Colts. At this time, the Colts, they had Marvin Harrison, they had Reggie Wayne, but they needed to replace Brandon Stokely. So they ended up drafting Anthony Gonzalez in the first round, pick 32, to come in and be that replacement. So he was able to come in, and he did okay his first 2 years in the league. His best season came in 2008, which was his second year, where he had 57 receptions for 664 yards and four receiving touchdowns. Now, after that, he would stay in the league for another 3 years, but he would only accumulate a total of five receptions for 67 yards after that. So he definitely was not the same. And a lot of that had to do with him just dealing with injuries. He was not really available. So, and by the time he finished 2011, he realized sports was not going to be where he makes his bread and butter. So he got more so into politics. And he does mention, though, in this article that I'll go ahead and highlight it here, that he wouldn't be sitting here if he didn't play for Ohio State. And it's just, he was talking about examples of ways that, sports has been really impactful on him. And it's such a tremendous experience to be able to spend, 3, 4 years at a university. This really changes a lot of lives. Obviously, the free education aspect of it, and for those who are able to make it to the next level and make money there. I mean, either way, it sets you up to be in a much better position than what you would be prior to that happening. So, and going back to October of 2019, and then that was back when the issue of allowing college athletes to be compensated for their names and likeness, images. And so yeah, him being a politician now, a congressman and former receiver, he wanted to introduce a federal bill that would be covering the national covering this issue on a national level. And the fact he wanted to stress the urgency of being able to get this done within the next year, as opposed to waiting 3, 4 years down the road, because every year counts, because we're talking about all of these college kids that all this money is being made off of them, and the only people that aren't benefiting from that are the college athletes. Now, there are some that obviously do have the concern about what happens if teams are able to pay athletes, how would that work, but that's a whole different discussion right there in terms of how that would work. Although he does state in the article that it would be more so of a universal type of thing in order to put some parameters around to make sure that you can't have a team just go out there buying, recruits. As we certainly don't want it to take that route. We just want for the players to be able to profit off their likeness, just like school has the ability, just like everywhere else, merchandise stores, all of that are able to capitalize off of them. So why can't you capitalize off yourself? So that is the direction in which he's hoping to take this. And let's see. Yeah, so they're talking about likely next week. They're hoping that this will be able to be at least brought up and discussed to where they'll be able to have this in-depth discussion to expand the name, image, and likeness right to all college athletes and have one universal standard, as I mentioned earlier, across the country, and then built some guardrails that, because there are some things you want to make sure don't happen, like people buying recruits, for example, as I mentioned earlier. And another thing is that you always, and he does go into that here, but there's a lot of people who get into contact with these athletes, that may not have the athlete's best interest at heart, especially when it comes to money. These kids, they're probably coming from communities that don't have a lot of money, or either, even if they are coming from better neighborhoods, perhaps that money was not given to them to be in control of. So managing money is going to be very big. And then you're going to have lots of agents, obviously. If you're able to get money, they want a piece of that pie as well. Then there's also friends, other people on campus, they know how much money you're getting. There's going to be a lot of new hurdles that they would definitely have to overcome in order to make this work the way that it's intended to be, and not have it turn out to be some kind of chaotic thing that changes, what we love most about college football. So that being said, definitely going to be keeping an eye on the progress for this, as this can have very huge implications on how this works out. I mean, we all remember the college football 2014, which was the last game that they made. Obviously, that one had to come to a halt because players were not happy. Some players were unhappy about not being able to profit off of it, and so it just reached a point where they had to stop. Now it will be returning in a couple years. They're looking at a time frame of about 2023 for the next release, so we still have a good ways to go. But yeah, it's good to see that Anthony Gonzales is out there utilizing the degree in which, well, all the education that he got from Ohio State, and he's out there trying to make a difference for future athletes, not just limited to Ohio State, but all across the nation. So that way they're able to profit off of their own likeness, and perhaps that'll help keep some of those athletes that perhaps they want to stay at the college level a little longer, but the temptation to go pro and get paid is always there, and so athletes tend to leave at the first chance they get. But how they'll work that out, that remains to be seen, as well as all the details that'll be surrounding this. But of course, as more news continues to break, I'll be sure to cover that as well. So thank you so much for joining for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to talking with you guys next time.